Now, I'm sure many of us have seen programmes like BBC's Who Do You Think You Are, where a team of people will track your own family history back through generations. But if you want to do it on your own and you want a nice easy place to start, well, the Second World War could be for you. Now, the following video that we put together is what we found out when we were tracking down our own family history, and I'll put all the links below in order of where we started. And the following video will give you an insight into the sort of things that we found because we went on a trip. We thought we would try and follow in their footsteps and see what other information is out there by being on the ground. And then we're going to start now inside our old vintage caravan in the middle of Kent. Now, while we were restoring the caravan, Charlie's learned about World War II at school. So what we decided to do was try and retrace our family tree, if you will, and find out exactly what they did in the Second World War. So my dad was based in Rootham in Kent at an officer cadet training unit. It was a very large camp. It started about 1942, and apparently there were between 10 and 20,000 different troops here undergoing some form of training. Now my go on, Charlie, have a go. Now, the play park and the pub behind would have been very different back then. Apparently the pub was still here, and it was a favourite with the officers, but obviously no play park, because the camp, A, B and C, would have come right up to the edge of the pub. My dad was based on a slightly different bit, just up the road, but we'll come to that next. You ready? Yes. Sure? Yeah. We've done really well finding out some history with my dad at Rootham Camp. We stumbled across a campsite, went into a pub that was used in the war. They recommended we came up here and had a bit of a look round. We went to the rugby club, which was also part of the camp, where all the vehicles were stored, and they gave us directions to here. What have we found, Charlie?
Water towers.
The concrete bases here.
Four.
There's four of these.
There's one over there.
Yeah.
And then
there's two more
opposite
over here. Obviously that's where the water tower was, and the concrete path here is all wartime.
Is that just the basis for the water tower?
Yeah. The water tower would have been
very big.
Set on these. You can see how big it would have been, because it would have spanned all four concrete platforms and gone right up there, and would have fed the whole camp. But we've also found the accommodation as well. The Nissen huts are obviously no longer there, but all the bases are, and we found some in a row, and there's also a First World War trench here, which was the stop line over 100 years ago. Yeah. So it just goes to show, in this campsite, just how much World War II history is still around. It's quite strange. Walk around a place that my dad would have been 75, 76 years ago. Yeah, walking around with my son. Yeah, very strange feeling. Especially when we found some of the Nissen huts. You know, who knows, he may have well stayed in those. We've been to a housing estate. He was a motorcycle instructor.
Machine, which if thoroughly learned and intelligently handled, is a speedy and reliable means of transport under almost all conditions.
So we went to the housing estate that was once the course. It's now called Highview, and we've been to the rugby club, which is where they kept 2,000 vehicles under armed guard. So yeah, as the start goes for our trip, yeah, very strange indeed. Hey Charlie, what have we found?
A Nissen hut.
So what do you think? Do you think your grandfather would have stayed in this one?
I wouldn't say this one.
What makes you think that? I mean, it's a long shot, I know.
It's a bit small.
Was this the bigger one that the chap said?
I think this is, wait, is that still the Nissen hut under here?
Yeah, doesn't it go further back? Is this?
All the other ones are half the size.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, look there. You can see the line
Oh.
goes all the way up there.
Yeah, I can see the back wall.
Yeah.
There it is. So this is the big one then. So that is how big.
And I said it was small.
Yeah, I don't think this would have been my dad's.
It would be small if, say, if you had all their lockers and beds.
Yeah. So how many people do you think would have stayed in this then, Charlie?
20?
Yeah, you never know.
They have to be crammed, don't they? Because how many people do you think?
Still well made though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's solid.
So we followed my dad's journey down from Rootham in Kent all the way down to the New Forest, which is where my father's war ended. See, the lovely New Forest was used as a storage area for all the Second World War vehicles, wasn't it, Charlie? Mm-hmm. We found some pictures online. Now, we don't know where this location is, but if you picture that tree line up there on this road through the New Forest, just up the road from the Centenary site, you know, that may well have been here. We don't know, we've no idea. But all I know is my dad's task was to convoy down as a dispatch rider all these vehicles to be built up. But whilst he was doing that, he got knocked off by a lorry, which left him unable to, well, that was the end of his war, really. He was then put on the sick list for a year and then discharged as medically unfit. So my dad's war ended in this lovely part of the world, but Charlie's great-grandfathers then took over at Tarrant Rushton Airfield. So with my dad's war coming to an end in the New Forest, we pick up where Helen's granddad's war started. There's the memorial behind me. This is one of the original buildings from the Second World War for the Glider Regiment. Very high up in Tarrant Rushton. Even made my ears pop when we were driving up here. And over there you can just see Helen, Poppy and Charlie. Look how flat and level it is. I'm guessing this is probably perfect glider terrain, and yeah, where they took off for D-Day. Back to me again in the caravan, because as I was editing this video, I realised there's certain parts that I've missed. We got so caught up in the story, it's only now that I think, oh jeez, you know, I should have really recorded that at the time. Right, so Charlie's great-grandfather is in the glider regiment and was based at Tarrant Rushton, and the plan was for all of the gliders to land on Pegasus Bridge that night. But because they took more equipment than they trained with, there was only room in the glider for 2nd platoon. Now Charlie's great-grandfather was 3rd platoon, and they sent him down to Southampton to go on a ship. It was either a ship or a landing craft. We've narrowed it down to 2 ships, or a landing craft. And he landed on Juno Beach. So the crossing that Charlie and I took, we went from Portsmouth to Caen, which is the closest modern day ferry that we could find to that journey, and that's where we pick up now as we're boarding. Charlie?
Yeah.
Should we see what's up there?
Bunk beds, I'm hoping they're bunk beds.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to run.
There you go.
Other way, other way, other way, other way.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Shut up. Oh, you had to eat. Almost like you had curry lamb curry.
It's strange that. What's wrong with that?
Very strange. Fancy.
So you sleeping down here?
What do you think?
Or are you sleeping up there?
I thought it was a one berth. I thought it was a one berth for a second.
You thought you were on the floor, did you?
Yeah. I thought I was just gonna have to sleep on that.
Well, I think that's a bed as well.
That's not good. That good.
Oh, looks cool though, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Go on then. There's probably a ladder somewhere for it. We don't need that, do we?
Will it break?
No. Go on.
It's a bit heavier now. No, I don't need it. Not too bad, up here could be better. Oh!
Aye.
Fancy.
Please drive to highlighted
It's
route.
like fingers.
Just like fingers. For the French leg of our tour, I took the old vintage Caravan with us, but I tow with the Mercedes Vito, and in the back of that, I put my Second World War dispatch rider's bike. I thought it would be a nice way to follow Jeffrey's side of the story on a bike very similar to the one that my dad would have used in the war. So in case you're wondering where this motorbike comes from, we took it with us.
From the carburetor, the petrol is sucked into the cylinder, and a current generated by the magneto is sent along an insulated wire, causing a spark in the sparking plug, which ignites the vaporized petrol and air mixture and pushes down the piston inside the cylinder.
Yeah. You all right? This is where Charlie's great-grandfather landed at Juno, 9:15 on D-Day. So we're starting to follow his French side of the journey, and from here they had to make it off the beach, and their rendezvous point was about a mile inland. So next we're hoping to find that. Right, we're between Juno Beach and Revere. I'm not sure that's quite how you pronounce it, but anyway. Charlie's great-grandfather came ashore on one of these ships. It was either that one or that one. Now he made his way on Juno Beach, which is where we were yesterday, and they arrived around here. This is a map from 1943, and they made their way down one of these roads until they got about 1 kilometre north of the town I've just mentioned. Now we don't know if this is the exact point where they were at, because it's very rough and it was a rendezvous point. Now when they were here they captured 5 German prisoners, and they were stuck here for 2 days because the road onto Pegasus Bridge was being counterattacked by the Germans. And so for 2 nights, this is where they were. Now I can only assume, I mean we stopped here because of that poppy behind me, but I can only assume that that wooded area would have offered some good cover. So maybe they were there. So from this area they then went on after 2 days towards Pegasus Bridge. So the airfield we visited in Dorset is where the gliders took off at Pegasus Bridge. Now we're at Pegasus Bridge here, you can see it behind us. Now,
Is that the original one or rebuilt?
I think the original one's in the museum, but we'll have a look at that in a minute.
In the museum?
We'll come to that in a minute. Museum's just down the road as well.
What?
So the gliders took off from Tarrant Rushton, flew all the way to capture this bridge, and the first glider landed
Here.
exactly where I'm here. So see that plaque behind you? There. All the way from Tarrant Rushton, landed at this spot, that close to the bridge. Amazing.
How do they...
Back to me again whilst I'm editing this video. Now, we went from Pegasus Bridge and we had some lunch in Pegasus Bridge Cafe. And then we thought we'd wander down to the museum just down the road. And we got so caught up in this that I forgot to film all of this bit whilst we were there. Complete surprise to us, this part. And if we didn't follow these travels all the way to France, we never would have found this bit. So anyway, we were going around the museum, looking at all the different exhibits, and lo and behold, there was a section for 249RE Company, which is what Charlie's great-granddad was a part of, because they were attached to the 6th Airborne. And they were tasked with diffusing all the bombs under the bridges and mine clearance around the area and that sort of thing. And lo and behold, as we went round with 249RE Company, we were looking at all the different exhibits in the case, and we looked up and there was a large photo. Now this is our last day, and lo and behold, as we looked up, there's Charlie's great-grandfather looking back at us. And that is why I completely forgot to film all of that. I took a few snaps and we were in amazement that on our last day he was there to meet us, and I just forgot to film anything. So and that is where the story with Charlie and I ends. But now there is a big but here. Going back to the forums, or the chaps that I'd met online and the stories that they'd given us, it then followed on for the next year. Because the chap that was researching the story for Pegasus Bridge, he got in touch with the mayor of the town of Benneville, which is just up the road from Pegasus Bridge, to say that he'd been in contact with the family of Geoffrey Woodcock, or Captain Geoffrey Woodcock. And we then had an email from the mayor to say, we're running a banners project, we're not sure, we might be able to include Geoffrey. So Helen and I, we went back in the caravan that I'm sat in now, we took it to France, and we thought we'd find out for ourselves. So for the 75th commemorations of D-Day, the French have decided to do a banners project, which basically, if we point that way, you'll be able to see in the distance, up on the there we go, up on the lamppost there. If a veteran helped liberate a town, or was part of a certain action to help liberate a town, then they've immortalised him on a banner. Now the trip that me and Charlie did, we were speaking to a French chap who was doing some research into the whys, wherefores, and where Geoffrey, Helen's granddad, actually, where the war took him. Lo and behold, we've come to Pegasus Bridge today. Was it the 5th today, isn't it? So 5th of June, day before D-Day. Pegasus Bridge is every bit as mad as you'd think it is at the moment. But 200 metres away from Pegasus Bridge, it's your granddad. So yeah, we didn't know, we didn't know for sure if he was going to be here. We had an email from the mayor of Benneville asking if we had an image and a little bit in the background, but yeah, can't believe it, there he is. So yeah, bit of a moment really, isn't it?
Yeah, so proud.
So we got lots more to do. We bumped into a TV crew. All we had was a picture of the street. We didn't have an address. We knew it was near Pegasus Bridge, but we didn't know which street. So there was a TV crew from ITV nearby, and we thought, well, obviously they've gone around the local area. Maybe they'll know where we should look. And much to Helen's delight,
Crash helmet hair.
with her crash helmet hair, they may want to talk to her on ITV local news. So, but you know, we'll see in a minute. So yeah, it's all happening here at the moment in France.
Helen, how proud are you? Exceptional. Very good. What does it feel like to actually be here and part of this massive commemoration, the likes of which we may never see again?
No, it's a proper goose-pimply moment. I can feel them now. To see some of the veterans here, and also the way the French remember this event, you know, as they should. It's so important that we should all remember this day.
No, absolutely. Really happy. Thank you very much.
That was a lovely day.
Yeah.
So just when we thought our trip couldn't get any better, we bumped into a group of other people on Second World War motorcycles, and we followed them to an event that the Pegasus Bridge Museum were holding, which is where Charlie and I were just 12 months earlier. This time we were able to park in the grounds of the museum, and they had, obviously being the 75th anniversary, lots of events were taking place. But one of the events was through the glider pilot regiment, and Helen was asked to take part in a reading on behalf of her granddad. And I'll leave you with this reading now, because as she goes up there, if you can see that she's holding something under her programme, that's the actual beret that Helen's granddad wore in the Second World War.
O God, whose righteousness is exceeding glorious, may it please thee to send out thy light and thy truth to lead us, thy servants of the Corps of Royal Engineers, that everywhere we may be enabled to do our duty, and so may glorify thee, our Father in heaven, for the sake of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.